Good evening. I'm McCarthy Coyle, and you're watching a live cablecast on Missoula Community Access Television. Thanks for tuning in. The show is called Under the Copper Dome. It takes its name during this period because the legislature is in session, and there is an old saying that when the legislature is in session, the whole town's in danger. And I think that this session of the legislature in Montana is nothing short of a scandal, including the governor's corruption of the Constitution of the state of Montana in his secret meetings with the people who were interested in becoming a regent of the university system. And we'll be talking more about that later on. And we'll be talking, too, about Thomas Francis Meagher, the Irish revolutionary, who is the man on the horse in front of the state capitol, and someone who fought hard for a populist and democratic vision of Montana. And there's a reason why his statue is there in front of the state capitol. And we'll be talking about the arts in Montana, and we'll be talking about a friend of mine who was talking about a form that you can sign if you're opposed to capital punishment. So, where do we begin? This is the week of St. Patrick. St. Patrick's Day was March 17th. And let's talk about journalists. The world over, there's something called the Committee to Protect Journalists. 185 journalists were in prison around the world at the end of 1996. And 26 were killed in that 1 year. That includes Veronica Guerin, the cops and crime reporter in Ireland, in Dublin, who was murdered for her work as a reporter. The most dangerous place for journalists last year was Algeria, where 7 were killed in the terror. 59 reporters and editors have died in the Algerian conflict since 1993. 6 journalists killed in Russia, 4 of them while covering the war in Chechnya, and 2 in India. And the rest died in countries ranging from Indonesia. A reporter for Bernas, a daily newspaper, was beaten to death, apparently for his reporting on certain land deals. Let's see. And of the 185 journalists in prison on December 31st of last year, the day of the committee's annual census, most were behind bars in Turkey, where the government takes a dim view of any reporting that can be construed to support the cause of Kurdish separatists. So, repeat the major statistic there. 185 journalists were in prison around the world at the end of 1996. And I wear a few different hats in my lifetime, and one of them is as a journalist, and I'm disturbed by those figures. I'm saddened by them. I'm shocked at the numbers. And I'm also wondering about journalists in America and what they report on, and how well or how not so well they're doing their job. One could say, well, we live in America, therefore we don't kill journalists, although journalists have been and do get killed in America. Radio journalists get assassinated because of their views or their reporting. But I think that these numbers that we read from other countries around the world maybe should give us some pause to reflect on what American journalism does or does not do. I find it weak and pale. and not rigorous at all. It just covers the surface. It doesn't really get to the heart of the matter. And I think it's time that Montana journalists seize more of the initiative. And by the way, congrats to Mike McAnally, the new managing editor of the Missoulian. I've known Mike for 20 years, and he's always been a friendly and always had a smile on his face for everybody that I know of, anyway. And so we'll see what happens under his guidance of the Missoulian. Just briefly, here's the situation that I face as a journalist over the last several weeks. And you've heard some of this before, but it's worth repeating. I don't want a situation, and no one should, under the Constitution of the state of Montana, in which we have very strong open meeting laws, right? I don't, you know, the governor is not supposed to be meeting behind closed doors with people who are seeking appointment to constitutional positions such as the Board of Regents. And he did that. The governor did that. Governor Roscoe, despite requests from journalists like myself, first of all, he wasn't releasing the names of the people who were applying for the position to the Board of Regents. So we had to kind of force his hand on that just to get the names out in the public domain, right? Then I faxed the governor. I said, okay, are your upcoming interviews with the 4 finalists, the people that you have chosen to interview, are they going to be open or closed to the public? He stonewalled me Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The interviews were conducted, as far as we know, in secret on Saturday, and a few days later, I got a letter, you know, from the governor, one of the governor's staff, saying, "Oh, sorry about that, but the meetings were, you know, closed to the public and closed to the press." So what was said? I mean, the regents, you know, have been in hot water for some time now. They're squabbling with the land board constitutionally. They're in a lawsuit before the Supreme Court, and the governor holds, you know, closed-door meetings with these candidates that are going to go on the regents. Okay, finally. Okay, so you know, secret meetings with these candidates. He picks one by the name of Ed Jasmine from Big Fork. I have no case with Mr. Jasmine. He may be the most splendid chap in the world. But I want to know what they had to say to one another. So do we all. So are we all entitled to this information, right? Okay, so what happens then? The appointments by the governor require confirmation by the Senate. I call up the State Administration Committee, the Senate Committee on Administration, which handles all appointments. And I'm told that the chairman of that committee has the task of, quote, investigating Mr. Jasmine. I said, well, what does that mean, investigating? Well, we don't know. This is what the staff member told me. And not only do they not know, but these candidates, you know, these appointments, you know, potential appointments that have to be confirmed by the Senate, do not have to appear before that committee on state administration. They don't have to appear. They don't have to answer any questions. They don't have to state their case before the public. And not only that, this process is known under something which was described to me by that staff person for that state committee on administration, which handles appointments, as executive actions. Therefore, there did not need to be a 72-hour notice to the public, as is the requirement now for a public hearing. There has to be a 72-hour notice. There can be there's no notice necessary in this case. In other words, it's a closed-door, rubber stamp, pro forma, you know, that's it. So we're going to get a member of the Board of Regents, and we don't know anything. Thanks a lot, Governor Roscoe. Thanks for your confidence in the state constitution. What a disgrace. What a disgrace. The CIA in Washington. You know, I've said this before over the last, umpteen years. The Central Intelligence Agency. The Central Intelligence Agency is stupid. It's murderous. It's corrupt. It has corrupted people and nations all over the world. It has assassinated people. And I am tired. I'm depleted and sick and tired and disgusted with this endless parade of who's going to be the director of the CIA. I don't want a director of the CIA. I don't need the CIA. The CIA is corrupt over its eyeballs. It has its own spies to deal with. It's spying on itself. It spies all over the country. And I can't imagine that there isn't 1 or 2 or 3 United States senators or members of the House of Representatives that is not standing up in the floor of the House and the Senate in Washington saying, let's just eliminate the whole thing. Let's skip, the hearings on who's going to be the director. If maybe private enterprise, the great, wonderful private enterprise in America will be interested in privatizing the CIA. They can take it over. They can run it. But it doesn't belong in this country anymore. It's corrupt. It's beyond redemption. What's the story on these secrets anyway? I want a camera in the war room, at the White House. Everybody seems to know what's going on in Washington, except the rest of us out in the world here, right? So they want to balance the budget, eliminate the CIA, eliminate the corruption, eliminate the hearings, and get rid of it all and save us $45 billion, the secret, what they call the black budget. You bet it's a black budget. It's a secret. What a shame. What a blot on this nation. We have caused more trouble with the CIA all over the world. Then they talk about campaign finance. Right? And all this stuff about the money, right? The soft money, the hard money, the contributions, and who's staying over in the Lincoln bedroom, and as if we don't ship money, government money, public money, tax money, U.S. American tax dollars overseas. They say, well, were the Chinese trying to influence elections in the United States? We send money constantly overseas through the Democratic and the Republican parties and through the American labor movement to countries all over the world to influence their elections. And then we're going to, get all, all prissy and, upset because we're imagining that the Chinese are trying to buy off American elections. That's what we do all the time. We try and buy up elections that we're interested in. It's the more democratic way of doing it. Instead of, pulling a coup, instead of slaughtering people in Guatemala, now we just send money, American dollars, through our political institutions, our great institutions, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. We send it through these parties to countries all over the world. What a disgrace. What a disgrace. Watch out for the energy industry. Oh, with a great deregulation happening all over the country. We're going to deregulate the utilities. We're going to increase competition. Boy, you should see that one coming down the line. If you haven't seen anything yet in terms of what you're going to be paying under deregulation. Oh yeah, more competition, cheaper rates. Oh, that's going to be good. That's going to be good. All right, I want to get back to where's that, my friend Helen Vivian, who called last week and called my attention to the fact, I have it here someplace, that there's a form that you can sign if you feel that you're capable. And I went over to the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center today and picked up this form. It's a declaration of life, and you sign it, and it says this. Here's the background. I believe that the killing of one human being by another is morally wrong. I am opposed to capital punishment on any grounds whatsoever. I believe it is morally wrong for any state or other governmental entity to take the life of a human being by way of capital punishment for any reason. And 4, I believe that capital punishment is not a deterrent to crime and serves only the purpose of revenge. But it is a form that you can pick up at the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center there on North Higgins, right down from the Crystal Theater. And you can sign it before a notary public and put it with your papers. And I want to say this. Helen, if you're out there watching and listening, I got to number 2, and I suppose this of that list that I read. I am opposed to capital punishment on any grounds whatsoever. And I would imagine, as I thought to myself, that this is the hardest bridge for people like myself who have not, taken up the issue of capital punishment as you have and as others have. And I thought, well, what about Hitler? And what if one of my sisters or brothers were murdered horribly? And what about how I would feel? Would I want an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth? And so, in order to be ethical with myself, when I read this form, I decided to myself, I'm not going to sign it right away. This is something that's serious, it's important, it's substantial, it's fundamental, it's worth thinking about, it's worth considering, and I'm inclined to think that this is what I want for myself. But I also said to myself, think about this so that you're not just signing something in order to be politically correct. So thanks for alerting us, Helen, to the existence of this, and it's gonna give me pause, and I'm gonna spend some more time thinking seriously about this matter. Okay? Thanks. What else have we got here? I want to recall again Thomas Francis Meagher, the Secretary of the Territory of Montana during 1865, 1866, and 1867. Very briefly, Thomas Francis Meagher was an Irish revolutionary in the 1840s, was condemned to death by the British. The sentence was commuted to exile in Australia. He escaped Australia after 3 years, made his way to New York, published a newspaper, became a lawyer, went around the country speaking, led the Irish Brigade for Lincoln during the American Civil War, and after the war was appointed Territorial Secretary for Montana. In that capacity, when the governor of the territory was out of the state, Thomas Meagher then became the acting governor. Most of the time, that's what he was, because the Republicans who held the governorship under appointment usually did not find it conducive to their, I don't know what, comforts or desires, and they would hop the stage and go back east someplace. And Thomas Meagher was a Democrat, capital D, and a small d. He was a radical. He was a populist. His words, his history are important to me, and I think should be important to a number of people today, because they ring true politically. He and the territorial legislature that he had called into session had petitioned the United States Congress to end the monopoly, which was already coming down. Think of this, the railroads and the timber industry and the mineral extractors, right, were already on the move when Thomas Francis Meagher was the acting governor of this Montana territory 130 years ago. And they petitioned the Congress. They said, get these guys off our backs. Get these big corporations off our backs. We can run things ourselves on the ground. You're taking our land. You're taking our livelihood. You're taking away land for settlers because the railroads, were controlling everything, the timber, the minerals, the gold, the copper. And, of course, the United States Congress, which at that time was a Republican Congress, said, get lost, Montana Territorial Legislature. We'll take care of things from here. So the railroads continued down through 130 years. Nothing has changed. Still the railroads, the timber industry, and the hard rock mineral extractors who are basically running and ruining this land and not doing their fair share to keep it clean and honest. So, Thomas Meagher, and we're Thomas Meagher said, I don't know if it's 9:30. Hello, you've reached MCAT. Anyway, these are Thomas Francis Meagher's words. He describes, he says, I left Kansas for Montana Territory in August of 1865 and arrived after a 17-day coach ride. The fare was $600, through Denver and on to Salt Lake and thence to Bannock. In the following spring, I had the good fortune to celebrate my first St. Patrick's Day in Montana Territory over in Virginia City. Now, a lot of this gets political, so stick with us. Now, there were many young Irish folk in the People's Theater that day. He's talking about the People's Theater in Virginia City. And others, too. All had come to this new territory seeking their fortunes, seeking a respite from war. And I marked that joyous and festive occasion with these words. Every foreign Irishman goes home on St. Patrick's Day. It doesn't matter where he is. He jumps on his fuka at daybreak and tearing over mountains and seas, bidding defiance to thunder and turf and lightning and the devil himself with all his works and pomps, and lands in Ireland precisely where he is best known, on the spot that is most endeared to him and which the dust of his people for generations has sanctified. Why, every one of you are at home with me today. This is St. Patrick's Day. This is McCarthy talking. This is Thomas Meagher talking literally on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, last Monday, 132 years ago. 131 years ago. Why, every one of you are at home with me today. There's not one of us in Montana. There's not one of you has seen the Rocky Mountains this morning. You have seen the Galtees, or the mountains of dark Donegal, or old Knock Me Down, on top of which, up in the mist and drizzle, that sportin' old buck of a major lies buried with his dog and his gun. The Rocky Mountains are gone for the day and won't be back till midnight. Now, the celebration we Irishmen make today is a celebration of love, of pride, of sorrow. Were Ireland an ill-favored country, were it sterile, bleak, and inhospitable, were there no sweet valleys, no laughing rivers, none of the grandeurs and graces of nature? Had Ireland no picturesque history, no great names illuminating her annals, no fields on which heroism had fought for liberty? Were Ireland a desert in the light of an unpropitious sun and a blank in the literature of the world, even so as the place of our birth, where first we knew a mother's smile and a father's blessing, we should love it, be jealous of it, be proud of it, and cling to it all the more devotedly on account of the deprivations with which it had been stricken. But our love for Ireland has no such rigorous conditions to test and vindicate it. For heaven has been most bountiful to that land. And as it came from the hand of God, it has all the rare excellence that make it a singularly favored land. And when we reflect upon the career it has been compelled to run under the mailed arm of a foreign power, and then reflect upon what a happy, honorable, noble little nation it might have been had there been no England at its gate, is it no wonder that conspiracies and outbreaks, heroic daring and heroic sacrifices should be the order of the day in Ireland? Speaking for myself, McCarthy, does it sound familiar? Does it sound like today, 130 years later? Thomas Francis Meagher goes on to say, in Virginia City, on March the 17th, 1866, "Give me the people, the democracy, the folk who till the fields and subjugate the wilderness and train and rear it into a noble civilization. Yes, give me the people and the democracy of Ireland and America. Should the Irish demand their liberty, I shall not wait on any lord nor their flunkies to ratify the claim. Give me the peasantry, the reviled, scorned, ignored peasantry of Ireland. Their wretched cabins have been the holy shrines in which the traditions and hopes of Ireland have been treasured and transmitted." And now comes the question. Now comes the question. On this St. Patrick's Day, here in Virginia City, is this festival of love, of pride, of sorrow celebrated here in Montana Territory incompatible with Irish loyalty to America? This ignominious question would not surely emanate from me were it not that there are some vicious bigots, men of small brains and smaller hearts, men of more gall than blood, who even here in the territory assert that love of Ireland, devotion to her cause, active sympathy with the protracted contest for her redemption, invoke an equivocal allegiance to the United States? I say, out! Out upon that bastard kind of Americanism that spews this imputation in the face of our gallant race, whose blood shed in torrents for its inviolability and its glory has imparted a brighter crimson to the stripes and made the stars of that triumphant American flag shine with a keener radiance, and that America has been served by none more truly than by those who carried in their impetuous hearts the memories and hopes of Ireland. It is that type of American here in Montana Territory who has no heart, that type and kind of Montanan who has no thought beyond putting a mighty dollar out at mighty interest, and who has no zest for any other book than his easy accountant or his soulless ledger. Yes, that peculiar American who has the Ten Commandments written on his face and looks so virtuous that he might commit any crime and no one believe in the possibility of his guilt. Thomas Francis Meagher, acting governor of Montana Territory. It sounds a lot like the current legislature to me, or a good portion of the Montana legislature meeting today. The Ten Commandments written on their faces. No one could believe in the possibility of their goodwill, their generosity. That legislature is a scandal. It's time for recall movements. It's time for the governor to open up the books. It's time for the governor to to keep hiding behind closed doors and start talking turkey and let the facts out. It's pretty sad. Pretty sad up there. You know, I had the privilege and good fortune of being associated with an organization called MQTV, which still exists and has still got, we videotaped K. Ross Toole, the late great Montana historian. And those videotapes are in libraries and high schools and colleges all across the state. Many of you have seen them. And they wouldn't exist. We would not have been able to complete that series of K. Ross Toole's Montana were it not for the cultural and aesthetic fund that belongs to the people of Montana. Because that fund and the people who administer it, which includes legislators, saw the value in what we were doing and provided us with assistance from the public, which means your tax dollars. They gave those dollars to MQTV so that we could do the work of editing this series and present it back to the people of Montana, and that we did. The money was spent wisely, and it's been a long time. It's been, I don't know, 17 years, so I don't know what it amounted to, but it wasn't a great deal, but it was a substantial sum at the time. But you got your money's worth. And what they do, so does that cultural and aesthetic fund exist today? Well, read today's Missoulian. Read the editorial page. Read the opinion piece by Hal Harper, who's been in the legislature for years. They wiped out the cultural and aesthetic fund this week. The legislature just said, you know, they're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So they just took all the money from the Cultural and Aesthetic Fund, and I'm speaking in broad terms now. Someone can be more precise about it than I do. But anyway, maybe that's a call for us. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, McCarthy.
Yeah.
This is Randy
Yeah.
in the other room.
Yep.
Just wanted to let you know that the K. Ross Toole's Montana series, produced, as you said, through MQTV, will be running again here on MCAT starting Sunday, April 6th.
Hey, Randy, thanks very much. Sunday, April 6th. And now, how is that going to be run? I mean, what's the sequence of events? It's 10 different programs, right?
Yes, actually, it will be run a half hour per week, Sundays at 5 p.m., and the same program Fridays at 11 o'clock a.m.
Okay. All right, so every Sunday at 5 o'clock, and then there's 10, is it 10 complete program, 10 half hours, or is it 20 half? It's 20 half
20,
hours.
yes.
20 half hours. So it'll be running every Sunday over a period of 20 weeks. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and that's 5 o'clock on Sundays, and then it will repeat on Fridays at
11 o'clock a.m.
11 o'clock a.m. is now. I've been out of touch on this. I'm glad to hear it. Can folks, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, we can get back to folks with this, but can they still get the workbook that goes along with that, or will we have to find that out?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I bet if they give MQTV a call.
Okay, good. So that's starting then, I'm sorry, the date again, Randy, April?
April the 6th.
April the 6th. Well, that's good information, good timing, and thanks for calling in. And since I was one of the producers, I'm glad to know it's back on the air. Thanks a lot.
Well, good work, Mac, and I'll hang up and let other calls come in now.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay, well, that's good news. I'm proud about that. Let's see. What else have we got? There's a book I love. I've spoken of it before. Born to Be. Born to Be, and it's at the library. the Missoula County Library. And it is the autobiography, it is the memoir of Taylor Gordon, a black man born in White Sulphur Springs in 1893. And he had a wonderful and interesting and very difficult life. His dad they were descended from the Zulu race in Africa. His father was killed in a train accident in Canada where he was working to send money home to White Sulphur Springs, where his wife, now she, of course, was a widow, and Taylor was one of 5. They were the only black family in town. And when Taylor was 17, he became a chauffeur, which in those days meant you were a mechanic and everything else. You weren't just a chauffeur in the traditional sense of the word, but you had to be able to know how to fix the car. He became a chauffeur for Ringling, of the Ringling Barnum and Bailey Circus. And we have, of course, the village of Ringling, Montana. And so Taylor Gordon went to work for Ringling, and this comes under the Copper Dome, too, because you'll find at the Montana Historical Society in Helena a wonderful, wonderful treasure trove, folks, of diaries and papers and collections and photographs, and a wonderful staff at that Historical Society who just really helps you out as you're working on a research project. Brian Shovers and Dave Walter, 2 of the names that come to mind at the Historical Society. But Born to Be, by Taylor Gordon, published in 1929. He went on to outstanding success as a singer in what we know as the Harlem Renaissance, when Harlem exploded in the 1920s because Taylor Gordon beat it out of White Sulphur with Ringling on Ringling's private rail car, working for him. And Ringling, Taylor was a tall, good-looking guy, big smile, molasses voice. He had a voice like molasses. And he went on to sing spirituals with the Rosamond Johnson Quintet, I think. Rosamond Johnson, all black guys, Full Tales, that's what they performed all over the country, toast to the town, and traveled to Europe. He published this memoir in 1929. It was very well received in the popular press. Good reviews in the New York Times, the New York Herald Tribune. Condemned. The book was condemned by W.E.B. Du Bois, the black leader. He didn't like the way Taylor presented the black race in some ways, because Taylor lived the high life in Harlem, or tried to. So the book has had 2 new editions since 1929. The first came around 1975, the University of Washington Press, and then 2 years ago, the University of Nebraska Press published it yet a 3rd time. So you can see it has legs, it has durability. It's a beautiful book with beautiful illustrations. You'll find it at the library, or you now can order that book at any bookstore in Missoula. You can order it, and it's not expensive. I think when I bought my latest copies, they were $11 or something like that. So, I mean, it's not out of line price-wise. And you'll enjoy it immensely. I did want to say that up there at the Historical Society, did I read Taylor's, diaries and stories and letters and accounts of the deprivation and hard times that he faced all through the 1930s and 40s, as everybody struggled during the Depression. But Taylor came back to Helena in 1936, trying to write another book that would equal the success of this one that he published in '29. His sorrows, his poverty, the racism that he was finally beginning to address foursquare, because he really felt that he lived, he'd been lucky to have been grown up in White Sulphur Springs. He felt that he didn't really suffer from racism there. And he spent many years in mental institutions back east in the 30s and in the late 40s and early 50s, interrupted by a stint working in a defense plant during World War II. And finally his sister came east from Montana and brought Taylor home from the mental institution where he was living. And he lived a very successful life in White Sulphur in the last, I think he died around 1970. So he had a very comfortable and, as far as I know from my reading, life there in White Sulphur Springs. I find it poignant that in his last will and testament, what he did there in White Sulphur when he got home finally, he kind of ran a small store, and I think it was antiques and used things, and kind of a museum to his own life. And in his last will and testament, it said that he hoped and expected that there would always be a black person working at that store/museum in White Sulphur Springs. And I don't think that has ever happened. And I'd love to see the day when the wishes in his last will and testament were fulfilled. And that's something that I expect to be working on. And it's a beautiful book, Born to Be, Taylor Gordon. You can find it at the library, well, I have this is a library copy, so I'll return it soon, and then you can get it. But he's a wonderful fella, and a real inspiration. And let's see, I've talked on one of the, there was the governor's Blue Ribbon Telecommunications Task Force, which I've talked about before, and I won't inundate you with all sorts of details, which probably are in the long run. I finally I'm naive, I don't know, to put to be more self-congratulatory, idealistic. I believe when, somebody says they're going to do something, they're going to do it. So 2 years ago, the last legislature, at the governor's request, set up this Blue Ribbon Telecommunications Task Force. And, of course, it was, they were going to, study the whole telecommunications infrastructure of Montana, as if it hadn't been studied before with mostly federal dollars over the last 20 years. There's been, several $100,000 spent on I'll see if this is for me. Hello.
Hey, what's your show all about?
Oh, have you been watching?
No, just tuned into you. What's going on?
It's kind of a public affairs program.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
What's the topic today?
Oh, gosh. We've covered the waterfront already in the last 45 minutes, so it would be... is there something on your mind that you wanted to share?
No, just tuned into you. We were just curious.
Okay. We've been on quite a ride since 9 o'clock. And so it would be...
Cliff Notes?
What's that?
Cliff Notes?
No. We've been talking about the CIA. We've been talking about Thomas Francis Meagher, the governor of Montana. We've been talking about capital punishment. We've been talking about...
Against it.
Huh?
You for or against it?
Capital punishment?
Yeah.
Well, this show will rerun sometime this week. You'll call and get the schedule, and then you'll understand what we're doing, because it was a very involved thing.
I'm with you.
And So I'm trying to be responsive, but we've really been all over the map tonight.
Sure.
So do you want to stick with us and then call back if you have a comment or question on something that unfolds in the next 15 minutes?
Sure, I just might do that.
All right, great. Thanks a lot.
Enjoy.
Thanks. Oh, thanks, Randy. That's tomorrow at 5. This show will be rerun. And thanks for calling in. And let's see. All right. All right, we were talking about the governor's Blue Ribbon Telecommunications Task Force. That's where we were. Thank you. So they were going to study the, telecommunications infrastructure. Well, they also, in the process, somewhere along the way, started, the state started sending out these, bills to the telecommunications industry. So that, U.S. West was, had to cough up so many dollars. And, all, the different telephone companies had, and the cable television people coughed up money. Well, I didn't know that the state was in the business of billing private companies in order to, so that they could have a seat at the table, because this is what it amounted to. So you pay your money, and then you get to be on the governor's Blue Ribbon Telecommunications Task Force. And, I thought that those days were over, where you could, buy your way into state government. It's a disgrace. I went up and I talked to this, gracious, intelligent woman who's the head of the Department of Administration in Helena, Lois Menzies, and try to, just have a little heart-to-heart. And I said, Lois, whom I don't know well, but I mean, I've seen her in and out over the last 20 years of going back and forth to Helena. And she said, and I said, how does this happen? That you start out with the legislature 2 years ago saying, yeah, we want to check out the whole telecommunications infrastructure. And what we've wound up with now, the end result of all this, endless meetings and minutes are taken, and is that it's a telephone company deregulation bill. That's what we got, and who paid for it? Well, the taxpayer in Montana paid for, one figure that I can supply is that we paid for about $25,000 in our taxes. So we didn't pay very much, but the industry kicked in, about $75,000, and so they got what they wanted. They got the bill. They got to sit at the table, write the legislation, and now it's going through the process. Well, that's just so much crap, And that's what goes on in Helena. Now, so what Lois Menzies explained to me, she said, McCarthy, she said, I worked over the years on many of these interim legislative studies, which this governor's Blue Ribbon Telecommunications Task Force falls under that rubric or that description, kind of an interim task force to study an issue or a matter, before the next legislature pulls into town, And she said, the reality is that often enough these task forces will not get anything done. They won't even get formed if industry doesn't kick in money to pay for them, because we're a state with not that much money. So the legislature is not going to come up with whatever it takes to pay for the study. They're going to bill the industry to get the place at the table. She said, that's the way, I know I'm not, I'm paraphrasing Lois Menzies, conversation with me, and so I don't want to misquote her. She was just, we were speaking, I wasn't sitting there taking notes and for purposes of quoting her for the record, but I mean, she again was reminding me of the political realities. She said, you can't expect that for that we can, check out the whole telecommunications infrastructure of Montana. Unless somebody, pays for it, and even then, we only get a telephone company deregulation bill, and that's the reality. And I shrugged my shoulders and I said, well, thanks for the reality check. You know, you pay your money and you get your seat at the table. And she said that's the ones that, she said, those that cough, you know, cough up the bread are the ones that get to, play the flute, or what's the old-fashioned expression? You know, they paid the piper, and so they get to sing the song. And let's see, I saw this commotion about one of the legislators asked for an appropriation of $17,000 for, I think, the audio taping of the House. I think the legislator in this case was from the House of Representatives, and he said that there had been so much confusion about the floor debate that for the importance of the record, as we, over time, that it's important to tape these, the floor debate. You turn on a tape recorder, insert tape, and tape the record, tape the whole record. And he was asking for $17,000 for this. Excuse me, that it would cost 17 grand to do this. It doesn't seem like a very, very big sum in light of what they're, dumping here and dumping there. But anyway, the House turned that down. And I would remind the House of Representatives and the State Senate and all the folks who maybe tuned in that last year, what's referred to euphemistically as Montana Public Television, I mean, I thought if something is called public, it means that we own it. But there seems to be a different impression at Montana State University in Bozeman, which is now controlling Montana, or a good part of Montana Public Television. I mean, we don't own it. We just, give money to it in taxes and in donations. And they censor a lot of programming down there, including world-renowned poets. And I don't like it. I'm an adult, and if I'm paying for public television, I'm not paying to have it censored on my behalf. But in any event, last year, according to the legislative staff, the television station in Bozeman got close to $600,000, of Montana taxes alone. That doesn't count the donations and the other monies that they get. So where is Montana Public Television? Why aren't they videotaping, the sessions? Is it just not important enough? I mean, we can't, people watch C-SPAN all over the country. We watch C-SPAN here. We count on it now. I mean, at least there is a goodly number of people that count on, they want to see these committee hearings, So if public television in Bozeman last year got almost $600,000, all it takes is one camera, folks, one camera to videotape that whole, session. So you got one camera, you got one staff person, or maybe one and a half people. I love that, when you get 1.5 people working. So it wouldn't be very costly to videotape and carry the sessions of the Montana House and the Montana Senate, and then people might, the citizens of Montana might have a grimmer understanding of some of the crapola that goes on up there, especially in the committee meetings when citizens don't even have the opportunity to speak their piece very peaceably, but are chopped off and chopped up and fed through the meat grinder of Helena. So this representative that got his request turned down for 17 grand ought to turn around and take a fresh look and say maybe we ought to trim, get quote Montana Public Television up here and spend some of the money that we gave them last year, well over $500,000, and send one of the, a couple of students up during the session as interns. Let's get with the program. Hello.
Yeah, you talking free money?
What's free money?
All the grants, all that.
Free money. Well, I was just. How long have you been watching? I was just talking about this fella in the House of Representatives who wanted to spend $17,000 to record the sessions of the House, so that those of us out here in Missoula or wherever in Montana might be able to watch them or listen to them. So that was the point that we were starting from at this point.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks it's free money, but there's no free money.
No, there isn't. I don't have any. Have you any other reflections?
Well, you're wanting all this money to promote all this stuff, but there's no free money out there.
Oh,
But somehow, if it comes from the feds,
mm-hmm.
it's free money.
Right. You mean that people think of it more? It sounds to me like you're saying that people think of federal money as
Free money.
free money. Well, and what about do you think they think differently of federal money than they do of state money? That, in other words, using your description of free money, do you think that the public has that Montana money is more real to them and therefore they're stricter with it?
No, I think you've raised a good point there. Somehow, tax dollars, be it federal or state, they think it's free money.
Mm-hmm.
There's no free money out
mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm. I'll just throw you a wide open question, and then you can either respond or change the subject. What do you think is the best thing and the worst thing that the legislature or the governor has done so far this session?
Oh, I don't want to address that.
Okay.
I thought you were addressing you wanted more free money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I was...
There's just no free money out there.
Right. I was referring specifically to the fella thought that it would be important to have the sessions of the legislature recorded for, so that we could check on what everybody had to say at the time during floor debate. And he was turned down. I'm not sure if he was a Democrat or a Republican, actually. But I was making the point, which I think you heard, that since we're already spending money on public television in Bozeman, then let them bring their cameras up there and let's not spend any more money. Or it already exists. So.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
I thought you were wanting more free money for your program.
No. Not This is I don't get paid for doing this show, and I'm a volunteer, and you can be too. So my director says I've got 2 minutes left. Do you have one last thought?
Only I think you're great, and it was fun.
Thanks a lot.
But I do think everyone should pay attention to. There's no free money out there.
Mm-hmm.
We all pay for it tax-wise, one way or the other. So everyone wants these free grants for their programs and this and that, but there's no free money out there.
No, I mean you're true. There's it's absolutely. Everything has its price, and I guess what the political arguments that take place is, since there is no free money, as you say, and I buy that.
Yeah, it didn't come from Mars.
That the arguments that happen is, all right, well, so where do we spend the money that we have, or do we give it back? But anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed the show, and tune in again.
And you made an excellent point.
Thanks very much.
Have a fine evening.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Randy, we got a minute left. Is that it? Okay, well then I think I have to say goodnight. And thanks to Pete Talbot, who took such extra care with the lighting tonight. And he's just always there when he's asked to help out. And Patty Henry, who did such an excellent job in helping us get a new set design, which is right in back of me, and it's a change from our blue curtain. Everybody, happy St. Patrick's Day, and I hope to see you next week if I'm still alive. There's no telling. Up the Republic. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Good night.